Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of NCompass Live. I am your host, Krista Porter, here at the Nebraska Library Commission. NCompass Live is the Commission's weekly webinar series where we cover a variety of topics that may be of interest to libraries. We broadcast the show live every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time. But if you are unable to join us on Wednesdays, that's fine. We do record the show as we are doing today, and you can watch it later at your convenience. And I will show you at the end of today's show where you can access all of our show recordings. Both the live show and the recordings are free and open to anyone to watch. So please do share with your friends, family, neighbors, colleagues, anyone you think might be interested in any of the topics we have on NCompass Live. For those of you not from Nebraska, because I know we do have people registered for today's show who are not from Nebraska, elsewhere in the country, and even we have someone from Canada registered today, yay. For those of you not from Nebraska, the Nebraska Library Commission is the state agency for libraries in Nebraska, so similar to your whatever state library. So we provide services and training and resources and databases and continuing education and grants and consulting to all types of libraries in the state. So you will find shows on NCompass Live for all types of libraries. Public, academic, K-12, corrections, museums, historical societies. Really, our only criteria is that it's something to do with libraries. We sometimes bring in guest speakers onto the show, but we also have Nebraska Library Commission staff that do presentations for us. And that's what we have today. Today is actually the last Wednesday of the month, so it is Pretty Sweet Tech Day. Yay! The last Wednesday of every month, Amanda Sweet comes on. She is our Technology Innovation Librarian here at the Nebraska Library Commission. Good morning, Amanda.
Good morning.
And she comes on the last Wednesday of the month, always to talk about something techie related. We do other shows about technology throughout the month too, but you can always depend on almost every single month that Amanda will be here at the very end of the month to talk, to do her Pretty Sweet Tech session. And today she is going to talk about introducing AI with purpose and practicality. Definitely, I think that's a good idea. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Amanda, to tell us all about how we can do this.
Cool. So anyone who's gone to some of my sessions before knows that I've been looking at AI forever and a day. And so one of the things that has come up is that a lot of the services and programs out there are just kind of scattershot. We'll do maybe like an hour of code thing, which is like an awesome introduction to AI, but then it doesn't always go anywhere after that. So I started kind of building out a framework to say, well, why are people going to be using AI? We always give the example of how the little camera in our phone uses AI to be able to identify a person's face and focus in so you can take better pictures. But that's also not really a super great reason to make people want to learn AI. That tool already exists. They just need to be able to pick up the phone and they don't really think about it. AI is just baked into it. What we do need to think about is how understanding how AI works so that we can understand the different careers that people can get out of it, the different ways that people can apply it to solve local problems or global problems if they're feeling fancy, and all these different ways that AI can be, the library can introduce AI in a way that people will actually want to dig in and become an AI engineer or dig in and be a business leader who's going to be implementing AI. And right now there's the nationwide effort to make America the AI superpower. And there's a lot of different changes that are happening in the background, including deregulation efforts. So another thing that we need to start looking at is, with all these changes going on, what does the public need to be paying attention to? Sure, we have like the really cool camera that can identify people's faces, but we never think about what it took for AI to be able to recognize that different face and how the data, like the different data sources and information that go into it. I just read an article from MIT the other day, and they did a research report that said they were looking into the data sources for the open source models. And AI actually needs a lot of different examples of a lot of different faces and a lot of different stuff to be able to actually recognize a human face. And
Mm-hmm.
what that MIT article found out is that some of the open source models actually have personally identifiable information from real people. So they would find pictures of driver's licenses and pictures of social security numbers and pictures of whatever.
Well,
And
that's
when
not
you,
good.
no, not so much. But then you start looking at how do we actually source the information, the images, and all this stuff that makes AI work. And way back in the day, like when all this stuff started, all these tech companies, they said, well, we already have people that are taking pictures on their phone and uploading it into social media, and we have all this information out there. But then I looked at, and they said, well, can we just use the images that people are already taking and then use it from there? But then you think about it and you say, well, what are the images that I actually have on my phone right now? I needed to be able to upload my health insurance information and be able to submit this into an online portal to fill out an application. So I took a picture of my driver's license and stored it
Okay.
on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took that and I stored it into my cloud storage. But then do we ever read the privacy policy that says how this information is being used?
Oh, of course we
I
do.
Yeah, 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 we read
Oh.
every single line of it and say, oh, okay, I get it. I know how you're using this. And then I just got a little notification from the free note taker on my phone, and it was a new privacy notification that said, we are going to be feeding the notes that you put into your note taker into an anonymous AI model. And I'm like, well, I used to store passwords in this note taker. I'm not going
Mm.
to do that anymore. How is this going to be used? And
Yeah.
then, yeah, so I deleted all of that off of there. But the way that that privacy notice was actually formatted, most people are just going to gloss over it. And if you don't understand how AI works and you see a little blurb that says, we're going to be using this to plop it into we're going to make our AI run better, most people are just going to say, okay, cool, I don't care. And they're just going to keep putting whatever they're going to put in there. And if you start thinking about all the different stuff that you have in the free note taker that's in your phone, and you start saying this is going to be used to inform an AI model, even if it's in an aggregate, do you want that stuff out there?
Mm.
And right now at the federal level, there's a big push to deregulate. For a while, they were floating the idea of not being able to regulate AI for the next 10 years so that they could drive open innovation. Um, who knows if they're actually going to go forward with that. They've been
Yeah.
floating every single headline, they're floating a new way to do it. But the general gist is that they want to deregulate in some way, shape, or form. So as libraries, we need to keep our communities informed about understanding how AI works because we're releasing information we don't even know we're releasing. I just took a picture of my driver's license on my phone thinking that, okay, I just need to upload this into a government website. And I took the picture on my phone and I'm like, I'm probably going to need the picture of my license later. I don't remember what my driver's license number is.
No.
If I forget that if I leave my wallet at home accidentally and I get pulled over, at least I have a picture of my license on my phone and I can say, really, officer, I swear, I promise I have it. Here's a picture. Then, but then is that going to land in an AI training model somewhere? And apparently, yes,
It could. Yeah.
it did. And in that MIT article, they said they did a sample set of 0.01% of the training model, and they found thousands of images of personally identifiable information. So if you extrapolate that out and say there were thousands of images in just that tiny sample set, there are probably millions of images in the entire sample set.
Mm.
Where's it coming from?
This is all
So
terrifying.
a little
Good start.
bit, yeah, yeah.
But I mean,
So
it's true. It's something that people have to understand. There are too many
yeah,
people, I think, that are just going AI, yay, and don't
yeah,
understand where this is all coming from and that it is not the best thing in the world
yeah,
necessarily. No,
yeah,
there's a lot of serious things that we need to look into and be aware of. And unfortunately, we've talked for years that you need to understand your privacy settings on social media. So if you don't want certain people to
yeah,
see things or certain things shared somewhere, um, but I think a lot of people just said, I'm out there public, it's okay. But now this is a
yeah,
whole different level of things that they can have access to. Yes,
yeah,
you voluntarily posted pictures to your Facebook page and you understood, yes, that's going to get shared.
yeah,
You never thought something that you only put on your own phone and then supposedly securely sent to your healthcare provider is also now
yeah.
being accessed. That's a whole different thing. Yeah.
And the other fun one was that, you know how everyone is using ChatGPT and OpenAI to ask questions about anything and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah. The
And
owner,
getting all the wrong answers.
yeah, the owner and creator of OpenAI, he just went out and did a bunch of interviews that said people have been basically treating OpenAI as their personal therapist. And I won't say whether I've done it or not. I'm not admitting that, but they'll ask all these different personal questions thinking that it's going to just land in the OpenAI model and you're talking to a robot, so who cares? The robot's not going to say anything. But all that data is being scraped into one big pot under the guise of saying we're using the queries that were put into OpenAI and all these different large language models to improve our system. And then
Mhm.
all that stuff that you put in there gets put into one big pot. And then that can get spit out into, it'll technically it will improve the way that questions are answered and it'll improve all this different stuff. But all that stuff that you just put in there is now just out into an
Mhm.
aggregate world. Just like the picture of your ID that popped in, and we don't know how that's actually going to spit out in an AI image. Is a little fragment of your social security number going to pop up in a um, image that's generated using AI that was trained on that model?
Mhm.
Is a picture like a little snippet of your face or a variation of your face going to show up in like Night Cafe or some sort of model that used that freely accessible training model? And we're putting all this data together so that more people use and leverage AI and innovate and do all this creative stuff. And then I just read an article from Nick Tanzi yesterday, he brought up the article that said, um, right now, all the different AI chatbots, the AI bots that are going out and scraping information from all these different library websites because libraries have awesome information. Now all these museum sites and library sites, they weren't designed to handle the server traffic. So now some of them are crashing or slowing down because you have more bot traffic that's
You
scraping the
gotta go.
information. Yeah.
And
And
then people who know, like I know we do that here at the commission, you will block, if you have a tech person, will block those particular things that are scraping. If you have someone who knows, they can block those
yeah,
particular IPs or whatever, and then you're not getting the good data anymore because now
yeah.
these sites that you went too much into are not letting you gather their data anymore.
But then you can reconfigure your scraping tool so that you can mimic human behavior.
It's all
Because
back and forth,
yeah,
back and forth.
yeah. And then so you adjust the tool so you can access it. And then after he shared that article out, I've I realized that I was probably the one who sent out a handful of those bots that are contributing to that problem because I too scrape the web to improve AI models.
Mhm.
And I'm like, just earlier today, I was scraping my own website because I wanted to reformat the data, so I actually botted my own website. So in any case, I say this as the world's longest intro to say we need to start refocusing and guiding our efforts about how we introduce AI to people. And instead of just having a willy-nilly activity, we want to start asking people how they would use AI and start practically asking people, if you actually used AI, where would you work? Where is it used by you? What does this look like
Mm.
tangibly, locally, personally, instead of just having a cool, fun activity and then it doesn't go anywhere? And then start larger discussions about, if we already have people using AI in this way, do we want them to be using it this way? What
Mm.
effect is it actually having our community, on our own personal data, on the wider world? Is this a good use of AI or is it a bad use of AI? And then instead of saying, where would you work, you can start extending it to say, what problem would you solve? How can you use AI to make the world better in some way, shape, or form? And then, are you making the world better practically?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you having an unintentional impact? One of the examples of unintentional impact is that they're finding out that all the different data centers and all these different centers that are required to make these large language models work, like the open AI requires a whole lot of server space to be able to make their system run. And those servers, they're starting to chew on all the different like the energy grid, the electrical grid that's in the location where that data center is built. And then in order to cool down those data centers and cool down the servers, that takes water.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember the exact statistic, but there's a stat floating out there that actually shows how much water it takes to be able to run each different query. And it was like 16 gallons or something like that. I'm sure anyone can Google that right now, or ask OpenAI, and they'll be able to find how much water it actually takes to run an individual query on ChatGPT.
It's insane. Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, it's
It's a
something
lot.
that's kind of like hard to wrap your mind around. Yeah.
Yeah. So from our end, from our perspective, as libraries, we ourselves are using ChatGPT for everything. We're asking our patrons, we start having our patrons that are already using it for everything, but then we don't think about the long-term impact we have on the local energy grid for where these data centers are located, and the amount of water that's being used for this. And now this big push for being an AI superpower means that they're also pushing to create more of these data centers. And now some of the data centers, they're switching over to use gas energy, and now that's creating more pollution in the local area. And they
Okay.
usually build them in like lower income areas where they don't have the legal power to be able to say anything about it. And so what is this impact going to have? We want to be able to create these new jobs and do all this stuff, but what does it look like in the wider world? And most of the jobs that are in AI, they haven't even been created yet. We're still in the midst of generating all this different stuff. So the next thing on here is that as a library, we actually need to know who we're trying to reach in all these different areas. So I bucketed out different target audiences that the library can start reaching to be able to generate new services and do all this different stuff. So first and foremost right now is probably the entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs can be pretty much any age range. We've had kid entrepreneurs, we've had teen entrepreneurs, adult entrepreneurs, and that goes in every different bucket and age range. The same thing goes for the innovators that may not actually use AI to create a new business, but they will use it to create a new solution within an existing organization, or they'll use it to create a new solution to a community problem. And then The last one is the organizations that are training people that are going to be filling the roles that are newly created by AI, or upskilling people who've been ousted by AI, because AI is going to be taking over some of the rote work jobs, especially in like manufacturing and different things like that. So the library needs to be able to identify who is probably going to get ousted from their local job, and can we step in to help them upskill in a low cost, affordable way? So that'll be the third little bucket in here. And how can we help these current employees learn how to use AI to be able to do their current jobs better so they can remain competitive in the workforce? And so pretty much all these different buckets apply to every age range. I wouldn't get picky there. And so in the rest of this, I'll talk about some of the changing goals that libraries can have, some different community partners I'd recommend starting to build if you don't already have them. Some of you might already have some of these built out, who knows? I'll go over some of the infographics and resources that I have so you can start introducing AI and the related technologies more effectively. And then I'll go over, I talked a lot about some of the ongoing trends already, but I'll talk about where you can go to track the trends yourself, and then how you can start tying some of this stuff and creating activities that are catered toward meeting local needs. And then I'll share a slew of activity resources and all that fun stuff. Cool. So my first framework that I like to give is libraries don't always have a general understanding of how the chaos of innovation actually works. We already do a lot of stuff to generate innovation, introduce technology, but this framework is just a way to add rhyme and reason so that it's just not a scattershot of activities. And the little robot on this left-hand side is the grain weevil. This is a robot that you put into a grain bin silo, and it uses little augers to propel itself forward, and those augers break up the grain so that you don't have to send in a human to do it for you.
I love
And
that one. I love that thing.
right, yeah, grain weevil's awesome. So I also linked over to an article that's basically like the making of Grain Weevil. It tells the story of the founder. And the founder was actually he was still in college when he started building this thing out. Before college, he'd actually gained exposure to robotics.
Mm.
And I don't remember if that was through his school or through his library. He may not have mentioned where he actually picked it up the first time, but he had gained initial exposure, and then he was fascinated by the technology and just started digging into everything. But then a local friend, like a family friend, he's a farmer, he came up and said, if you can build me a robot that makes it so that I never have to go into a grain silo bin, I will love you forever. And he was like, challenge
Um,
accepted.
yeah,
Yeah,
something practical that you can do. Yeah. And I'll
right?
mention here too that the link that Amanda's talking about afterwards when we have the recording up, we will have a link to Amanda's slides as well. So
Yep.
you will have
Yeah.
all of these slides available and all of these links available to you afterwards.
Right. Yeah. And so that was he had the exposure to the tech, but then exposure to tech doesn't do anything unless you have the exposure to the problem itself. Sometimes the problem is already baked into an existing organization or business, and sometimes it'll just be out in the wild, wild west of the world. In his case, it was out in the wild, wild west of the world. And when it's out in the wild west, that's usually the start of how a startup or an entrepreneurial venture starts. And when the problem is in a current business, it's career exploration, and it's the launching of how you're going to start building skills to get a job. But what's missing right now for a lot of folks is they have the initial exposure to robotics, like they go to an activity in the library, but they don't know how to progress it. They don't know how to keep tinkering around in robotics and then be able to connect over to education pathways that are affordable that will actually help them do what they want to do. And some people are going to go to university and they're going to learn it. They might get a full-on robotics degree or a degree in AI, but the cost of it, um, right now they're changing the way that people can, aff- um, it's called the Perkins Grant right now. They're changing the eligibility for Perkins Grant and they're changing the funding model and how people can get loans for college. So
Mm.
college is getting more expensive. So we're asking people to get these high level tech careers and build all these different skills, but it may and may not be more difficult or more expensive to actually pay for that degree. So we need to start looking at alternative certification models and different lower cost structures. And people were already looking at that because I don't even want to tell you what my student loan still is right now. But
Yeah.
but it's so we need to step in as alternative education sources to be able to say we used to tell people to just take a college degree or take a degree to be able to explore this and see if this is where they fit. We can't tell people that anymore. We need to start sending them over to Coursera or edX, or MIT started making a bunch of free educational resources, and PTech by IBM has all these free resources, and Google has a bunch of free resources. So we need to start sending people there to these free level resources to be able to explore and experiment, audit courses online, and use that as a tool to find out if this is actually where they fit instead of telling people to just go get a degree. I've had so many people tell me to go get a second master's or go get like a bachelor's degree just to make sure this is a thing that I want to do. And I'm like,
No,
no, no,
that's
no, I'll kind of know. So,
not anymore. No.
yeah. So when we're introducing people to this stuff, I'll connect you over to a bunch of resources that you can send people over to alternative education pathways and start encouraging certifications through community colleges and start reducing the stigma against community colleges. But then the next step is actually sending people over to entrepreneurial support resources. Like here in Nebraska, that looks like SourceLink is the big one here.
Mm.
SourceLink is actually built off of a model that's basically like a entrepreneurial ecosystem building system that originated in Kansas. So SourceLink is not the first SourceLink in existence. It's just another implementation that is in Nebraska instead of Kansas or another state. There's also EcoMap. EcoMap is they're an AI-driven platform to be able to map out entrepreneurial resources. So if you are from another state or another country, then you can go to EcoMap and they have a whole framework built out so they can start mapping out your local resources and keep them updated using AI, which is a practical use of AI. And then the Nebraska Startup Academy is their kind of like your free level tier that you can send people over to so that they can find out if entrepreneurship and innovation is the right thing for them and to be able to understand how the process works. So that is your freemium level entrepreneurial resource support. And then NMotion is the biggest regional accelerator that connects over to both metro and rural areas. So they just cover the gamut. And then the Founder Institute, whether you're in Nebraska or not, is a awesome resource for people that are exploring being an entrepreneur or being an innovator. And they want to be able to find the support resources, go to all the different webinars, interact, go to activities. And then the SBA is also currently changing some of their program structures, but they still have a lot of different awesome resources that you can dig into. And a lot of libraries already partner with the Small Business Administration, and that's just a good way to start.
We have someone who's in the audience chatting today, who actually going back to the grain weevil that you were talking about, who worked a little bit with Chad Johnson, who is Chad Johnson, the creator, co-founder
Oh,
of the grain weevil.
yeah.
It was an after-school program in Aurora. Youth
Was it?
engaged
Yeah.
in technology innovation, a nonprofit, and working through the Nebraska Public Power District, actually. So it was an after-school type thing that originally, got him going with that. So exactly. So this is like a
Sweet.
Nebraska uh, success story
Right.
specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if
But
you
I'm sure
haven't,
he's all over the place now. Yeah, it's a
right?
major
And
major company
people, yeah, I never actually knew how he gained that initial exposure, but that is good to know. But if he had never actually run into that family friend who pointed out the problem,
now.
then he would have never actually
That
done any of
specific
that. Yeah.
problem that needed solving.
I'm
Yes.
sure he would have gone on to do something else, but yeah, I'm glad he did that. So now the next question is, now we know how some of this stuff works, how can the library start cultivating systemic resources that start stringing all this different stuff together? So we already have some activities that are introducing emerging tech and some activities that we bring in guest speakers that are talking about local problems, but those guest speakers don't always overlap with our STEM and STEAM activities. We don't always bridge that gap to say that these are actually one and the same thing. And so one of the things that I started encouraging people to do is to build out a community problem board and just ask people. I guess we're basically asking people, what's your problem? Maybe you don't phrase it exactly like that because that's just a little bit snarky, but we want to be able to know what are the most pressing problems in your local community. Is it homelessness? Is it food access? Are you in the middle of a food desert so you can only get access to Hostess and Twinkies? And you don't always have access to fresh fruit? Is it all the prepackaged stuff that's like Dole that's in like the syrup or in like the 100% fruit blend, but you don't have access to a fresh apple or a peach? And how can we use technology to be able to build a smart garden so that we have access to this fresh food locally? And how can we start building out a greenhouse and building out all this different stuff so that we can have this more year-round in a controlled environment instead of just isolated during seasonal, mostly during the summer and fall? And one thing that I found out when talking to communities is that a lot of them actually started to build things like a community garden, but it started to fall apart because they didn't always have a regular source of volunteers or people that were able to go out and water the plants.
Mm,
But if you started embedding little sensors and nutrient detectors into the soil by each plant, and then started setting up a little alert system that went out to your 5 volunteers or to just one coordinator, and it said, this plant needs attention, this plant needs attention, that one needs attention, we're all good. Now you don't have to get a volunteer that's going to go out there once a week or once a day. You just need to get someone who's going to look at the app and go when it's needed. And that's easier to maintain than starting a regular volunteer schedule and trying to send staff over there when there's not actually anything that they need to do.
mm,
And so if you have like setting up the smart garden like that helps solve that problem. And it's using AI and tech with a practical purpose. So starting with that community problem board and then syncing it over to the people that are learning how to use tech. And when you do every single different tech activity that you do, whether it's AI or the Internet of Things or robotics, you start saying, we just learned about this technology, now let's go over to the problem board. Does the new stuff that you just learned about technology, is there a way that you can solve any of these problems? Let's start researching how this new technology we just learned about is already solving this problem. What is it already doing? Can we implement a solution that we just learned about that we never knew existed? Or can we create something new? And now we're slowly ticking away at learning the new technology that never seems to stop changing, but we're also pairing it together with the problems we need to solve anyway. And that can be a community problem board, it can be from local businesses. A lot of the entrepreneurial ecosystems, they'll use something called a Jumpstart Challenge, and they'll have a local business or a nonprofit come in and say, this is a problem that we have. Let's go do some open innovation. We're going to open this problem out to the wider community and just put together a 5-minute pitch that tells me your solution. How would you solve this? And libraries can even host their own Jumpstart challenges. It's a common thing that's done in the entrepreneurial world, and anyone can do it. And that's all you really need to do is frame out a problem, give people the curated information resources about it, and then say, connect over to the people that are learning about this emerging tech. You can even do it with a STEM and STEAM group after you've done an AI module, a robotics module, an IoT module, and introduced all this stuff. And then do a Jumpstart challenge to wrap it all out. And that's like the most practical, simple way to implement that libraries can start bridging the gap between this. And the tool that I'm building out right now is actually a way to be able to progress those skills and introduce this in a more tangible way and a more affordable, easier to access way to for people who don't actually have a background in all the tech or all the problems.
Yeah.
So that's one of the tools that I'm building now in the tech ready platform.
I think that's one of
But
the things that I'm sure many libraries don't have that knowledge or experience because they've never had to do anything like this before.
yeah, and
Um,
that's the big thing that I get is that I introduce this framework and people basically just say, okay, great, but hit the easy button on
I
it.
have no idea how to do
So
that.
yeah, so that's the platform that I'm building now is actually hitting the easy button on stringing all this different stuff together so that we can build kind of an entrepreneurial tech ecosystem that actually solves real problems. And as you might imagine, it's taken a hot second. It's getting there. But this session is just about kind of like the starter things that you can do even without that platform that I'm building out. So the jump start and then introducing it, and then I'll sync over to some different resources. I will do this one first. So this is the tech innovation database that I put together a while ago. Yeah, sheets and innovation. Cool. So this is a collection of, it's basically like a whole hot mess of different ways that emerging tech is being used across the state of Nebraska right now. So when you start doing activity about robotics or AI, or you start doing activity about any of this stuff, you can search the tech section of the database and then find a whole bunch of different ways that you can pull up to say, this is how this is actually being used, and start building a tangible framework for what it actually looks like. And instead of just doing a quick little pressure sensor activity using microbit, you can start saying, let's look over at the survey robot that uses this to deliver food from the back kitchen staff over to the front house. So
Mm.
if you don't have staff that are always on hand to be able to bring food out to the people who just bought it. I know there's actually a restaurant term for that, but I don't remember what it is right now. It's delivering food to the tables in front of the house. But so you can use this as an example to be able to string all these different activities together. And I made this little framework that says choose a local industry, choose the technology that you're trying to introduce, and then find the local business that you want to use as an example. And you can pull it from this tech activity database. And then most people actually just show a video of how that works or pull open different articles to have people read about it. And then once people have that mental framework in their head, they'll go do the activity so that they learn how a different aspect of that technology worked. And then after I put together this framework, I also put together these infographics that will show how Industry 4.0 actually works all together. So I'll pop open the AI one because that's what this one is all about. And one of the easiest ways to be able to sync together the simplified tech activity that you just did with a real life thing is to be able to pull out different service features of how that technology actually works and sync it over to the specific activity that you just did. So this is the bionic hive squid. This is used in manufacturing. This is a little robot that's designed to crawl up these little guide rails, and it'll pick up a box, take it back down, and then follow the little colored lines to be able to navigate its way to deliver the box to where it needs to go across the other side of the warehouse.
Hmm.
And it uses these little QR codes to be able to scan where it needs to turn. And if you've ever used Ozobot Evo, the little Ozobot robot, you
Yeah,
know
it's
that this follows a colored line on the floor and then scans color codes that are drawn on the floor to be able to know which direction to turn. And wouldn't you know it, that's the exact same way that Bionic Hive, and instead of using a color code, it uses a QR. But it's the exact same tech that's being used in real life. So a lot of the communities that I talked to, they had trouble justifying the purchase of the Azabot Evo and justifying the purchase of all this tech because their business center or their whoever it was, they were like, okay, it's great that you want to buy a whole bunch of different robots, but what is this actually doing for job training? What is this actually
for
doing
our
for,
business. Yeah, our
yeah.
business. Yeah.
And so if you need to make the case to a library board or to a local business development group or economic development group to try to get funding for the tech kits that are going to be used for introducing emerging tech, these infographics are actually a useful way to do that. And you can start making the direct tie back to say, this is a simplified activity, but we can help people work their way up to actually having these real job skills. And now you can use Azabot not just for the kids that it was designed for, but for the adults that are trying to figure out if this is something that they want to do. And then you can start wrapping it around and saying, we just got a group of all these adults together and we did an activity with Azabot Evo. And then after it, we started having a discussion about human computer interaction because on every warehouse floor and in every area that a robot is actually going to be interacting with a human, that's another field of study. We need to know that robots are interacting safely in an environment that has humans in it. And then you have obstacle detection, which you can do another activity and just start stringing all this different stuff together. So there's a whole lot of different ways that you can do it. And I just put these infographics together if you don't have a background in the tech or a background in entrepreneurship, innovation, and how all that stuff works.
We
And
have a
then,
comment from one of our attendees who's at one of our educational service units, ESU 10, that he says, I love the entrepreneurial approach to tech and libraries, that they blend
yeah.
design thinking into their STEM programs.
Oh,
Is it
sweet.
ESU?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I love some good design thinking. And so the rest of these are infographics to introduce related careers. So these are just the little, you can print the sheet off and then have people scan this QR code and it goes to an article that digs into greater detail about what all this different stuff does. And it talks about I have other resources that actually talk about the design process of how AI goes from idea into an actual solution and the people that are behind building out those solutions. So you can start basically reading the story of how AI turns into a real thing. And then this is an infographic of the steps that people actually take to build an AI-based solution. And there's other frameworks of this, but this is just a simplified kind of introductory way. And then there's other ones that talk about the people behind the tech and what their roles are. So you can use this as a way to understand the steps and the people that are actually involved in each one of those different steps. And then people can start thinking about where they might fit in this system. So even if you don't want to be a full-on data engineer and go through all the training, you can still be a business analyst who still requires a solid understanding of how machine learning works and how that is a tool that can be used to solve a problem within your organization. And can use this as a launching pad to go in different directions and just understand what the opportunities are. And so you can sift through some different examples of how machine learning is bucketed out and start understanding the terminology and just understand what it is in general. So there are infographics for AI, and then I've got them for the major emerging tech categories. So there's a link in that slide deck to be able to start digging through each one of these different concepts. And I apparently linked this to the wrong thing, so I'm just going to fix that link. And fixing right now. Done.
Poof,
So
and it's done.
this, yeah. So this is a fun little chart that you can use to visualize what this process actually looks like. And I have another chart that has more examples of what this looks like in practice. So if you know that food services is one of the biggest employers in your community and you want to start introducing people to the concept of the Servy robot, then this is like the simplified activity that you can use and some of the videos and articles you can show during the activity. And you can do this for pretty much anything from this tech innovation database and then back it into um, a framework like this. So it turns into essentially a lesson plan. You have the click open the lesson plan activity, and then you can print off the infographic so that people know what this looks like. The infographic just links over to these. So you can print off that little resource pack and then open up the video to show it at the start and ask people to dig deeper into the article if they're super curious about how this tech actually works. And so that's your simplified way to be able to start putting this all together so that you can use it for pretty much anything, anywhere, anytime. And these are the resources that you can dig into to choose the equipment that you might want to use. I have a gadget guide that's bucketed out by the type of technology and then the training and information resources for different budget brackets. So if
Nice.
you have zero funding, you start here and then you shimmy your way on up. You get the idea. You just pick it based on the amount of money you got.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is like your cheat sheet accelerated way. And except this, I'm going to need to change. Note to self. And these are some tech activities that you can use to, these actually sync up to the tech kits through the mail that are available through the Library Commission here.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're trying to, if you don't have a big budget to be able to start implementing all these services yourself, the tech kits of the mail system, you can actually check out 1 to 15 different copies of multiple different types of tech and use that for an activity, use it for whatever you're going to do. And some libraries have actually been using it to check out the tech and then test it out and see if it's something that they want to purchase themselves. Some people check
Right.
it out and use it for their full-on activity,
Try
but
before you buy.
pretty much. And so the types of tech that are available in here, I put a whole list of them just straight up at the top here. And then you've got if you click on it, you can find the activities and resources and understand what the thing actually is with a little demo model of the little robot in action. Azabot's adorable. And I
Yeah, so those
already,
tech kits are something, for those of you not familiar, those are available to Nebraska libraries
yep,
to check
yeah.
out from here from the Library Commission.
And some other states have reached out to me about building a system like that for their own state or region too. So if you are looking at building something like this for your area, I can share out some of the resources that it took to put it together.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I used kind of like a home baked circulation system. So if you have a system that supports the library of things a little bit differently or a little better, you might want to use something different there. But if you
Yeah.
have zero budget or low budget, I can share the Google Sheets version and the formulas that I put together for that. It's a whole thing.
It's a very popular resource, definitely. So if you do want to
Yeah.
borrow any of those, get on the schedule.
So I also linked it to through
Mm-hmm.
the slide deck over here. And the last thing that I will pop open here are the high-tech pages. So these pages give a little blurb about a lot of the different stuff that we just covered now. And this is sort of the ethics, what should we be paying attention to? What are the main trends and issues? What are some of how is it actually being used? I talked about those articles that were talking about the teams and the people behind AI and the process of how it's worked, how it works. And these are just some articles that you might want to plow through to be able to build a better understanding of what that actually looks like. And eventually one of these days I'll shift it into a format that looks a little neater than just a whole bunch of links on here.
Yeah,
But meh,
it's
it,
accessible the
it
way it
works.
is, at
It
least
works.
out there. Yeah.
And these are the learning communities that you can send people over to if they want to talk to experts in the field or connect over with communities of people that are doing the thing and some different activities. And I
Mm-hmm.
have this formatted better in another website, but uh, I'm actually reformatting that site, so I'm not going to pop that open.
Work in progress.
Isn't everything. But so that is more or less what I've got for you for this session. But if anyone has any questions about the hot mess of resources that I just threw out at you, or if you want to share some ideas of your own, what you're doing, then always happy to hear it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, does anybody have any other questions or comments or anything you want to share? You can type in the questions section of our your GoToWebinar interface. We are at 11 o'clock, but we did start a little afterwards, and so we'll stay as long as anyone has any comments, questions, anything you want to ask or share about. And there is, of course, Amanda's contact info if you do want to reach out to her about anything she talked about today, about those tech kits, just want to chat about AI or technology with her. We do have a comment, says, wow, these are some great resources. Thanks for all the legwork on this. Will be super useful in sharing with our schools and librarians. And that is why we have a technology innovation librarian here at the commission to do this work, the legwork for you. That's a lot of things we do here at the commission is and I know here in Nebraska we have lots of small libraries with and smaller communities with not a lot of staff, do not have the time or funding to go and dig deep into these things, and we do that for you. With Amanda, with all the technology and a lot of other things that we do here, we can figure out this stuff and then put it out there and say, hey, here's what we've got for you. We put it all together in a way that's hopefully more useful to you. And now you just have to go to the one thing that you might be interested in, and hopefully it is helpful. Yeah. And I know the tech kits get checked out regularly, so I definitely know that they are. They're always coming and going.
And this is the platform where those digital skills and tech resources are migrating over to. So this is a way to tackle digital literacy and tech literacy, emerging tech literacy. People call it a jillion different things, you know? So cool.
Very useful. All right, and just some more thank yous coming in. Thank you, Amanda and Krista. You're welcome. I hope this is helpful.
Yep.
All right, so it doesn't look like any other desperate questions or comments are coming through, just some thank yous. That's great. As we said, the slides will be available. Amanda, if you want to share the link there, or did you need to do any tweaking to it still, or good to go?
Nah, I can just share it out. Copy. Okay. There's always probably places where it could get some tweakage, but it is what it is.
That's the good thing about having these as Google Slides. They're out there, and if you do need to update something or someone realizes, hey, this isn't actually correct, you can always say, hang on, give me 5 minutes, I'll fix it.
Right. Like the link that went wrong over here.
Yeah.
I did fix that. Yes, I did. Okay.
So I am also, wait, did I do that right? Stop, paste. There we go. So I sent the slide link out. It should have gone out to everyone in the chat and the questions. If not, it will be linked on the archive page as well. So I'm going to pull presenter control back to my screen here so I can show you where all that is too.
Go for it.
So here's my link where I've got the slides. But over here on the NCompass Live page, if you use whatever is your search engine and browser of choice and type in NCompass Live, the name of our show, you will get our main show page and our recording page. This is the event page for today's show. But if you go to our main page here, we have our upcoming shows that we have all scheduled up for the next month or so. And then a link right underneath that is to our archives. So this is our show archives, the most recent show at the top of the page. So today's will be up there, should be up by the end of the day tomorrow. Everyone who attended today's show and registered for today's show will get an email from me letting you know when it's up. We also push that out onto our mailing lists we have here in Nebraska and out to our social media. We have a Facebook page for NCompass Live. Over here, we use a couple of hashtags, little abbreviated hashtag for our show name, NComp Live. And I also try to use Pretty Sweet Tech when it's a Pretty Sweet Tech show, if I remember. So we have a Facebook page for NCompass Live, and the Library Commission has an Instagram page. That's what I was talking about. Instagram that will also put the announcements out to as well. So if you do like to use Facebook or Instagram or something, give us a like. We do reminders, just a reminder to log into today's show, announcing shows, and then when the recordings are available, we post on here as well. So you can always keep up with what we're doing here on our Facebook page. On our show archives here, you can search for any topic if you want to see if we've done a show on a particular topic. You can search the full show archives or just most recent 12 months if you just want something very current. That is because this is our full show archives, and I'm not going to scroll all the way down. So a warning, I'm going to do a quick scroll here, because as you can see, some of these shows are quite old. These are our full show archives going back to when NCompass Live first premiered in 2009. So this year is amazingly our 17th year of the show. We're still going, but we have all of our show archives here. So do pay attention when you do watch an older show to the original broadcast date. They all have a date right here on them, tells you when they happened. Some of these shows are great to watch, still good, stand the test of time, still good, useful information, but some things will become old and outdated, and we'll need to, so just pay attention to that. If we have a show on a particular topic, to make sure that take that into mind. Some things will become old, links may be broken, resources may change drastically or not exist anymore. People will work at different places than when they presented for us. So just keep that in mind. But this is something that libraries do. We keep things for historical purposes, and as long as we have a place to host all of our show archives, which right now is the Library Commission's YouTube channel, we will always keep them out there for you. All right, so that wraps it up for today's show. Amanda will be back with us in a month, as usual, on the last Wednesday in August 27th, to talk about something more Nebraska specific, changes to our Nebraska libraries on the web service. We offer websites hosting to libraries, and that program is changing up. So if you are a Nebraska librarian interested in that program, she'll be here on NCompass Live on August 27th. They're also doing other online sessions for that on August
5th and 7th.
5th and 7th, yes. And they are on our training calendar. If you go to our calendar and go to August, Libraries on the Web, or Pre-Suite Check. 3 different sessions that you can attend to learn more about what's happening with that. And then next week, though, so here's all our upcoming shows, August, getting even into September dates. So that'll be Amanda will be back with us. Next week's show, I hope you'll join us, talking about the National Book Festival near you. Library of Congress hosts an annual National Book Festival in Washington, D.C., but they are doing a new thing called the Festival Near You, where you're having more local things related to the Nebraska Book Festival, and we are doing that here in Nebraska. Tessa Timperley, our communications coordinator, will be with us, and Carla Kettner, who is the author of our children's choice for the National Book Festival. The book is Ted Kooser, More Than a Local Wonder, will be joining us to talk about that and tell you how you can participate in the festival near you. All right, so that wraps it up for today's show. Thank you, everyone, for being with us here today. Thank you for all the great resources and information, Amanda. Good to see you again. We'll see you in a month, and hopefully we'll see some of you on a future episode of NCompass Live. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Hey.